Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good morning, depending on where on the planet you are at this moment. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to DroppedMic Season 1, Episode 3. Once again, this is your host, Ted Wegist. And before I even begin, I want to reiterate that this show is not just about me sitting here and talking to you guys, right? There's a whole team working tirelessly every day, making sure that we bring you guys some of the best production that we can bring to you. All right, I want to thank our production team, GV, Indy. I want to thank the staff for the show. I want to thank the staff of the show. Pastor Shiloh, Sephora, Mina, our Marion, Lori. We're feeding our hungry and greedy bellies. Once again, thank you for tuning in tonight, guys. Welcome to the DroppedMic. All right. And as you guys already know, I'm not by myself tonight. I'm always joined by an amazing group of young professionals, men and women with some very strong opinions. And it's no different tonight. With me is a very loaded panel tonight. I'll go down the line. I'll start with you, Marcus. Can you please tell us your name, where you're from, and any interesting fact you would like to share with us?
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to wish a Good evening to everyone watching at the moment. My name is Marcus Lolo. I'm joining you guys from Buffalo, New York, and I'm a professional musician. And I'm the director of the Love Supreme School of Music here at Spirit by the Pappy Martin Jazz Legacy Society, which provides jazz education for children in low-income areas of Buffalo. Yep, and this is pretty much it.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus. We'll go with you next, Mitsuka.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mitsuka Atis. I'm from New York City. I'm also a law student and a singer, a vocalist within the Haitian SDA community. And that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. And next, I think we have Carl.
Rodney. I work as an operation coordinator for a nonprofit located in Boston, Massachusetts. Ma profite occasion sa pou m'di tout haïtien ki branche kap kote nou sur YouTube avec Facebook. Good evening and souhaite I'm very thankful for the opportunity to come down today and sit down and talk to you all about this topic.
Thank you, Rodney. Next, we'll go with Casey.
Good evening, everyone. Sak Passe. Hopefully, everybody's having a great evening, no matter where. I'm from the 215, Philadelphia. I'm a creating entrepreneur. I own my own marketing business called Ads by KC, and I also am a partner of class travel from place to place, teaching culture, and how to dance compa, because everybody loves how to dance.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, KC. And we also have a familiar face. She was here on the first episode and she couldn't get enough, so she's back. Tricia, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself again?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back with you guys. And I am Tricia Aspinall. I am a quality system specialist in a pharmaceutical med device companies in the Boston area. And that's pretty much it. I'm looking forward to enjoy this panel tonight.
All right, thank you, Tricia. And last but not least, we have Natasha. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Natasha.
Hey, everyone. Natasha Lorius. I am from Boston, Massachusetts. I work in management at an international medical devices company, and I'm happy to be here with you guys this evening.
All right, thank you very much. And there you have it, folks. This is our panel. And so today, proposals, as you guys have seen from the topic reveal, I can say proposals have become quite the spectacle nowadays, right? People plan months ahead for the right time, the right day, the right setting to pop the question. And it begs the question, if after all this preparation, you pop the question to your significant other and their answer is a no, would you still be with that person, or would the relationship continue, I should say? That's the topic we're going to be discussing tonight. It's a very widely debated topic. Different people have different opinions, and so does our panel. So I'll start with you, Mitsuka. Please tell me what you think.
I think that, no, the relationship doesn't end. I would think that specifically in a relationship, in a committed relationship, especially one that's geared towards marriage and, where marriage is the ultimate goal, there's a conversation that occurs between the two individuals about whether or not that's a step they want to take. I don't think a proposal should ever come out of the blue. And I think most people as I would believe, most couples would decide to have a relationship, to have a conversation about where the relationship is headed, and how long they want it to head in that direction. And so the guy should kind of propose knowing what the answer is going to be.
Okay. You know, I like that point, and I'm going to come back to it because the fact that you say the guy's supposed to know what their answer is going to be. I'll go next to, well, Natasha, I'll go to you now. Can you please tell me what you think?
You know,
I'm not sure if Tess.
I agree with Mitsuka to a certain degree, but I think that it depends. I think that while it is true that the relationship doesn't necessarily have to end, I think that it matters kind of what happens after the proposal or how the proposal is done. You know, if the person who is saying no is doing so in a way that is maybe, you know, hurting their feelings or maybe is bringing to light an issue that the other party wasn't aware of, I think that'll affect the relationship long term. So while it doesn't necessarily have to end, it depends on, I think, specifics in terms of what is done in the to and after the proposal.
Okay. Very interesting. Trisha, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, so I don't believe that the relationship should be over. As Mitsuka said, it is supposed to be a conversation that occurs between the two individuals. And if a guy has any doubt that the woman is not going to say yes, I don't even think that they should proceed to planning. And it is also a yes or no question. You should also expect to get a no, and a no doesn't mean that it's a never. It's just sometimes means not yet. You know, sometimes it can be due to trauma, childhood trauma, untapped, like other type of form of trauma that occurs in someone's life. Sometimes someone doesn't feel financially stable enough to commit yet to relationship. So I feel that it does not end. It just opens a door to new conversation.
And before I even transition to our gentlemen, Tracy, I have a question for all three of you ladies, right? So a proposal doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get married tomorrow or the next day, right? So for instance, when you said the no may mean not yet, and you guys have mentioned, I think all three of you guys have mentioned the fact that throughout the relationship, the guy should know when to pop the question, right? So my question is, at any point during the relationship, they should be on the same page. So if the person feels like financially they're not ready, or maybe they had some sort of trauma, like you mentioned, Tricia, or I'm not sure, any other reason, shouldn't those issues have been communicated at some point throughout the relationship?
Definitely,
what do you ladies
but
think?
I feel like not every guy does take the time to really sit down and have a conversation. And sometimes I feel like maybe a man assume that she's going to say yes no matter what, and not thinking that she's going to say no. It's like, okay, we've been in a relationship. The relationship is good. Like, I know, like, there's certain things that we need to work on, but it's a no-brainer. She's going to say yes, but it's not the same case for everyone. So, no, like, the conversation that is going to happen is not more so about, do you want to marry me? We need to lay all of our dice on the table to know exactly what's going on. And if you have a doubt, don't do it.
Interesting. Mitsuka, it looks like you have something to add.
I heard it from somebody once that they said that within a relationship, a man is proposing to you every day. He's proposing to you with every action that he does. He's proposing to you with everything that he chooses not to do. All of those actions, or the actions that he fails to carry out, in what he's doing, he's proposing to you. And so as a woman, I believe that we should be transparent. Like we should be open to communication when somebody's doing something we're not happy with it, because the man could be in a relationship and he thinks everything is smooth sailing, everything's going fine. But if he doesn't realize that you have an issue with something that he's doing, he may very well come and propose because in his mind, the relationship is great. So I think the onus is on both people, but especially the woman who's being proposed to be transparent and communicate about what your concerns are before it gets to that point, because you don't want to leave the person in the dark and have them thinking that everything's okay when it's not.
Interesting. Now let me transition to my gentleman, because it seems like all the ladies are on the same page. I'll start with you, Carl. Please tell me what you think, man.
Well, in order for me to form an honest opinion regarding the question, I must first, investigate, the relationship between the two individuals, right? People often, as the young lady mentioned earlier, get into a relationship with a lot of traumas, insecurities, without really asking questions about, what the expectation is, from the relationship. Some people, they ever talk about the idea of marriage, and then one morning they wake up, they're like, well, I'm getting older, or I'm losing on physical market value, so therefore I need to be in a marriage. So however, at some point in the relationship there was a conversation, and there was everybody happened to have been on the same wavelength. I do believe that if the man goes and goes to share it like they say in the commercials, and then you propose, and then the woman says no without any legitimate reason, I believe that the relationship has to end necessarily, but the premise of the relationship and the terms they do have to change.
Very interesting. Marcus, do you have anything to add to that?
I think considering all the different factors that are in play when we consider a rejected proposal, if the relationship doesn't end at the proposal, it probably should. Now, I know that may come as a shock, given the overall direction that this conversation has been taking so far. I think that a rejected proposal, it exposes a breach in communication that has happened in a relationship long before the proposal actually happens, right? Because many of the ladies have stated that a conversation needs to happen in order for the couple to be aware of whether or not they're ready for marriage. Well, that conversation does not happen at the proposal. It happens long before, and it gives both people an indication of how close they are to the point where they should decide they should spend the rest of their life together. Because a marriage proposal is not just a proposal of us being together. In certain ways, we're already together, right? What we're considering is whether or not we should rely on each other to determine the outcome of the rest of our lives. Now, that's the real reason. Now, if on one side of the relationship, there's one person on one spectrum saying, I believe based on what has happened in this relationship so far and everything we've been through and all of the things that we've discussed and considered, I'm at the point now where I feel like this is the right time, to decide to spend the rest of our lives together and affect each other's life decisions forever, or at least as long as we're alive. And then on the other side of the spectrum, way beyond that, is somebody saying, we're absolutely not ready. So not ready that when the question does come, I have to make the decision of saying no with all the risks and damage that decision is actually going to take. So perhaps that relationship has been in a poor state long before the question actually came. This may be a problem, and that's even before getting into specifics. Now, that's one aspect of it. And to piggyback on what Ted said earlier, you said that an engagement does take a certain length of time, right? And so given that we're not getting married tomorrow, is it really worth it causing the emotional damage or the embarrassment that comes with turning down a proposal. Well, based on what I read on brides.com, the average proposal length in the United States for engaged couples is 12 to 18 months. If there should be some blunder or imperfection that cannot be corrected in the next 12 to 18 months in a relationship that is bound for marriage, whether it be on one side of the relationship or both sides, one should ask themselves, is it really worth it having to, waddle through the mess of overcoming the damage that's done from a rejected proposal and pursuing a relationship further that wasn't ready, for long-term commitment at its culminating point, which is engagement. Yeah, that's my take on that.
Very interesting, very interesting. I mean, I want to put this into perspective for our viewers and for you guys as well, our panelists. You guys have to think about it as you and that person, hypothetically, have been dating for, I'd say, at least 2 years. Okay? Not a month or a couple months, but 2 years minimum. So, Casey, I'll go to you next. Let's say you propose to a young lady that you've been dating for a while, right? And then she says no. In front of all your friends, your family members, right? You're embarrassed. What's your next move?
Well, my first move is to close and commence walking to my car. And at that moment in time, let's just paint the picture. Let's like Ted is saying, you spent 2 years with that person. We've all lived experiences. You meet new people, interact with, texts and messages don't come back. You go on dates. Dates aren't that cool. All of a sudden, the heart is boop 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 boop, and she says no. Son, I'm gone. I'm out. Peace. The Lord be. You know what I'm saying? Like it's, and then you got the family, and I'm speaking from personal experience. I know my communication level, I know investment, so I know these conversations are going to take place. So for someone to just say no, something's got to be wrong. Not with me. So they technically did me a favor. That's all I'm going to say for right now.
Interesting. So I have a question for my gentleman. So someone once said, this is a true story, by the way, guys usually want to end the relationship because of shame, and they feel like their ego has been shattered. So, gentlemen, please weigh in on that.
Wow. I'm going to go first on that. Yes, ego does play a part, right? Ego plays a part in the possible rupture of a relationship that has been going on for that long. But on that same I guess aspect of the topic, I want to say, and this is a personal preference. It's also not a fact that should be universally adopted. But I believe all proposals should be private, because I think that there is a manipulating aspect of putting someone in front of a whole bunch of people and asking them a question where if they say no, then you're automatically embarrassed and you have cause for grief, right? And you don't allow them to be their most authentic self in a situation like that. And that's just a side note based on what I just said. But yeah, I think that though ego plays a part, though it plays a part in the reason why the relationship may be over, it cannot possibly be the only a rupture would have. Understand, by the time a man, in a typical heterosexual relationship, gets to a point where he's like, you know what, because let's be honest, we talk about the fact that commitment issues are really at an all-time high in the male population worldwide, right? So for a man to get to that point where he feels like this is the moment I have to ask her, I have to at least assume that the majority of men, by the time they get to that point, are certain of a number of different things. And to feel like they've either been misled to believe what they actually believe about the relationship, or that the relationship has been so disingenuous that they were unable to read it for what it actually was, they may feel like it's not worth fixing because the time invested in it has now allowed them to see the relationship for what it truly is. Maybe it's unsalvageable by that point. Maybe it just is. I mean, that's what my take is on that. So,
Mark?
Something I would really like to go ahead and I'm sorry.
Tracy wants to say something, I think.
Go ahead, Carl. Go ahead, Carl.
So I would really like, just to add on is that the woman that truly loves you, the woman that truly cares about you, I think like, she's looking like, every day to spend like, the rest of her life, like, next to you. And she wants to be the backbone, like, in the relationship. She wants you to be successful, to help you strategize or anything. So if you go ahead and you oppose, and as I mentioned before, and everyone was on the same page, and she says no, anything like, even if you were to go ahead and I personally believe that you shouldn't ask again. But if you were to go ahead and ask, and she says yes, anything that after the first no is like, highly skeptical, and that is like, up for a level of criticism and questioning, in my opinion.
I think you and Marcus here are sort of assuming the intentions of the man in that proposal. Like, it seems as though all of you guys are assuming that the man is proposing with great intentions. If a man cheated on me, or I found out that he cheated on me the night before, and he proposes to me the next day as some type of band-aid, I'm gonna say no, whether it's in public or not. I'm gonna say no. And
but
so you have
it
to
also
understand
depends why he cheated. Why did it cheat? Why exactly did he cheat?
That's
that is a question. That is a fair question. That is a fair question that I do think like should actually be addressed. So
wait a second. Wait a second. Trisha wanted to say something.
Let me. Let's put some order in the court, please.
No, I do believe that is a legitimate question. It's why exactly, because she did mention like, what if he cheated the night before. I mean, I would definitely be stupid if I were to go ahead and propose to a woman and the night before, like, like just cheat on her. So there must be something. I'm sorry?
I'm just that stupid.
I did not. I'm sorry. The feed.
Some men are just that stupid to do that.
I don't believe like saying stupid is actually like very very correct to define like the way that men think. Like stupidity is not like something that like that comes in out of nowhere.
We're saying the decision is unwise. The timing.
Yes,
all right, so let me jump in real quick. Let me jump in real quick, guys. According to Time magazine, right? It is proven that some men do in fact propose after they've been caught cheating. Right? They're like, hey baby, here's this ring. Forget about everything that happened last night. So it is true. But back to my question.
So
I'm sorry,
so ladies,
Ted, I want to interject for a second.
So Ted, I also want to interject myself for a moment. I also do. Like, see, before this like in the beginning, right? I did mention, that the woman can say no for a legitimate reason. Now, a legitimate reason that is very, very subjective. It isn't something like that like I'm very sorry. The feed is cutting.
Okay.
Go ahead, continue.
You're open to like a woman having reasons to say no, but at what point of the conversation do you actually listen to these reasons of saying no? Because I believe KP said that he's out right away. And you,
Well,
why
there
would
are
you sit out and
there are
listen to
Well,
the
I'm
reasons,
out.
like
Doesn't mean
the reason.
communicate with her. Just because I'm not my fault. But just because I'm out doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to go back and try to communicate with her. But at that moment, I'm feeling emotionally. If I let respect, like let's just be real, like you done put yourself out there in front of somebody, you done made yourself sudden. I have to be close. No, let me walk away from the situation. Let me eliminate myself from the situation, and then when we get in dialogue, she'll probably anyway call me anyway because she realizes I'm upset, so she cares about me. She'll reach out to me.
If a
Let me
woman
hear
says
from.
no to you
Let
after
me
she
hear from.
proposes to you,
One second,
if
guys.
she
One
says
second. Let me hear
if she
from
says
Natasha.
no to you, I can guarantee you that she does not care about how you feel. So the fact that
it
you're
is
thinking
not
that she will call you back,
No,
that is a bit
no,
idealistic.
no,
That is a
no,
bit idealistic. So if a
All right,
woman,
all
absolutely
right.
not.
if it
no.
if a
I
woman can
Just because she
go
absolutely.
say no
ahead
doesn't mean
and
she can't
say
contact
no,
me. It's not
I
like
want to hear the
I'm
ladies,
gonna
man.
block her
Okay,
just
okay.
because.
And figure out why she
No.
said
All right,
no.
everybody. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it in. Let's bring it in. I want to hear from Natasha.
Period.
So I
I like
take
that.
I take offense
Facts.
to I take offense to the point that if she says no, it's because she doesn't care. I think there have been a plethora of potential reasons that have been, brought forth. There might be something that the man does not know that the woman knows, right? And she has not gotten to a point yet where she is ready to talk about it. She might know about infidelity, she might know about financial issues, she might know about something that's going on that she intends to address with him but is unable to because the timing is not right or because he's not in the right mood. And so he might be thinking, okay, well, everything is fine. She doesn't know. So, for whatever reason, I'm going to propose because I want to keep her, because I messed up and I don't want to lose her, because I genuinely love her, whatever the case may be. Um, but just because she says no, that doesn't mean she doesn't care. It might be, in fact, that she cares so much that she wants to make sure that certain issues are addressed, right? That they're
I see.
discussed, that they are straightened out, and that they're resolved before they move forward with such a serious undertaking, right? If we really think of marriage as this lifelong commitment binding two people, right, whose lives are forever intertwined, why wouldn't she love you and care about you so much that she says, hey, let's pause for a moment. Let's not keep going at the pace that we've been going, but let's talk about this, right? Let's communicate. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Let's make sure we both understand one another. So I think that at the core, at the foundation, communication is key. Communication, like consistent communication. The moment that you, as the male or as the female, are feeling something that's off, you have a concern, you're made aware of something, and you need some more light brought to it, talk about it, bring it up. If maybe last week you guys were talking about marriage, but this week, you got a diagnosis, or you saw him talking to a female and it made you feel some type of way, talk about it,
Oh
right?
Lord.
So that way both people are on the same page. No one is left kind of hanging or wondering what's this or what's that. Everyone's together in sync. So I think that it's a bit presumptuous to say because she says no, she doesn't care. It might be the opposite, or it might just be, there are women out there, I don't want to speak for them all, there might just be that woman who really does not care, right? But just to say that blanket statement, I don't think is fair to us as women.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Which is, it never
So now,
says.
guys, let's go back to that Time magazine article. So, according to Time magazine, there are 5 leading reasons why marriage proposals are rejected. And we're
the
going to
woman
go through
doesn't
those
love you.
5 reasons.
That's it.
We're going to go through those
Definitely
5
one of
reasons.
them.
And I want the ladies to weigh in on the first one. Okay? So, that first reason is unromantic proposal settings.
You mean
So, Michika, please
unrealistic?
tell me.
unrealistic sounds more, you know, it sounds
So
more
Mitsuka,
fitting. It does sound more fitting.
let's start with Mitsuka.
Can you elaborate on
Please
that?
tell
What do
Mitsuka.
they mean by unromantic proposal setting?
Well, the article says unromantic proposal settings.
Unrealistic.
So I guess according to the
I would
lady,
say.
it wasn't romantic enough.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Mitsuka?
No, I I don't think that it should get to that level. At some point, you kind of have to realize what the essence of what the person, like the essence of what the person is saying. They're asking you to marry them. Who cares if it's not the right spot? Who cares if it's not the right way? As Marcus said, I think this is where the issue with having a public proposal is a problem. But I think that, again, the onus is on the woman to kind of know how you would want to be proposed to. If there's conversations about this, I would think the guy would make sure that prior to him proposing, he's asking the woman, you know, if you were to be proposed, you know, what would you like? At that point, you should know your woman so well that you know what would make her heart soften. You know what would make her heart flutter. And so if there's unromantic proposal settings, I suppose that the woman in that situation would just assume that the man just does not care enough, or doesn't care to think about what she likes, what she loves. And so there's no effort that went behind it. But again, I don't think that's a reason to say no. It may not be the best situation to be in, and it may tell you something about that man. Maybe he's not listening to you, but I don't think that's a reason to say no, unless this is something that happens repetitively in so many other areas of the relationship.
See, I do agree with what you're saying, and I totally agree with it. But like, you know, there's only one problem with that is oftentimes, you know, women are not really telling you what they're thinking, or they said that they're thinking about one thing and they're thinking about a totally different thing. You know, I'm that is like, you know, both from personal experience and like, you know, that is very well, like, you know, argued that, you know, oftentimes, you know, you girls don't really say what you mean and mean what you say. And that is oftentimes, like, you know, a problem. No, listening goes that way. So listening goes, you're saying something, telling me thinking, and I'm processing it in order for me to go ahead and act on it. But if you're not telling me what you're truly thinking, I cannot go ahead and do whatever you want me to do. That doesn't make any sense, you know?
The question would be, what would be in the best,
go ahead, Tricia.
what would be the best scenario if I were to propose to you? What would that day look like? What would you be wearing? The questions have to be so specific that you're not missing any details. But I think there's another level to the question is people getting caught up in the romanticism of getting proposed. Going back to Marcus, I believe a proposal should be private because you have social media that gives you those unrealistic expectation of what a proposal should be like. And poor brother that is about to propose to you, that pour their soul out, and then you deem that proposal is not romantic. Like, I am a woman, I am not vowing for women over having all those unrealistic expectations where they feel like my proposal was not like Kylie Jenner or whoever it is. I'm not I'm just saying a name that just popped up in my head. Like, also knowing the person, meeting them where they at, and understanding is the essence of the question. As Mitsuka said, you're just asking the person to marry you. That's the most important question.
Okay, now I have a so let's go to
Can I add one more
next
thing? Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Marcus,
I also want to do that after him, Ted, if possible. If possible.
Can I say something?
Right
I'll go with
after you, my
Marcus,
man.
and
Right
then-
here. I'll be brief.
So
I'll be very brief.
So I'll go to Marcus, then we'll hear from Casey because I haven't heard from him in a while. Then we'll go to you,
right,
Carl,
well,
okay?
That works.
Contrary to Carl's perspective on certain things, I do not believe that making blanket statements about what women typically do or don't do will help this conversation much. Because the reason why this topic wait, let me finish, man. You gotta let me finish. The reason why this subject is debatable to begin with is because there are different a plethora of ways situation could go, and there are reasons as to why somebody might say no to a proposal. But to piggyback on that New York Times article, there's a Times article that you were talking about. I also read it, and that reason that so those couple interviewed, those people that they interviewed, 2,104 people who had themselves rejected marriage proposals. They were asked for 5 different reasons in no particular order as to why they rejected that proposal. Unromantic setting was number 1 at 67%.
Yep.
Everybody's saying that the setting was unromantic, and they believe that was cause enough for them to reject the entire proposal. Now, we have to understand that unromantic is a very broad term in this situation, and it might mean a number of different things. If your girl just came from Walmart with you and is standing in the kitchen in sweatpants, and you got a phone in your hand and you're putting her on Instagram, looking like something she doesn't want to look like, I can understand. But is it really worth saying no to somebody? I'm not sure. But I think that the fact that it was the number 1 reason as to why proposals were turned down in the United States, because I read a different article about the UK, and the top reason was totally different. But it speaks volume about what our generation, because that survey is from 2014, what our generation thinks of marriage, what our generation thinks in terms of priorities as to what's important to a marriage. I mean, the proposal is a question. It's a big moment. It's a milestone. I definitely agree. Could that one moment really be the foundation of your entire marriage? Not so much. But if people believe that that is ground enough to eliminate the possibility of spending the rest of their lives with somebody, it says a lot about us. And given that the majority of these people were women, there is a statistical factor there that we have to take into consideration. That said, I'm not going to say you women do this or you women do that, but I'm saying, statistically speaking, based on what
those
that
are not
article
blanket
said,
statements. I mean, and what you just said, you just proved the point.
Let me finish. We're just talking about 2,000 people. 2,000 people. Listen, 2,000 people that were not
Who said that they were rejected?
Okay, yeah, 2,000. But understand, man. There's 7.1 billion people in the world. That is not. That is not.
Yes, but for example, that is enough of a sample to make a reliable study. And when you say that the fact that the setting was an issue, that tells me that that there's a communication issue. That means maybe she's not saying exactly what she wants or how she expects out of a proposal.
I digress. I'm gonna let the conversation move forward.
I want to hear from KC, y'all.
And one of the things that everybody's talking about is we're not thinking about the influences that most people are being. Not like I never feel like they're being influenced by. What I mean by that is social media plays a big part. So the pictures that you're supposed to take, the video, all these different things help you create that fantasy that whether you're a male or you're female that you have in your mind. Now, if that being portrayed properly, you're like, well, maybe this person doesn't really understand how I feel and understand how to really, make me feel more. How can I find the word? More desirable, because everybody wants to feel like they're the pop star or a superstar. So it's be in the basement. Now, the question is what if you do something bigger later down the road? Does the person really give you the opportunity to grow? Because the proposal is just one part of this, saying yes or saying no, and then you got the wedding process, and then you got the actual wedding, and then you got the actual that last, God will ever. So the no is not really a big deal, but the biggest problem is how people are thinking it, and that's the biggest, that people aren't really connecting the dots. So that's what I'm gonna say about that. I'm gonna let somebody else chime in.
I think there's an element where you have to know who you're with. You have to know who you're dating. If you're not dating a romantic man, don't expect a romantic proposal. You kind of have to know who you're dealing with.
And if someone were to ask you, how would you like to be proposed, just trying to tell them exactly or something similar to what you would like, that way it's not up to them to go ahead and do something. and then that way you
Ask
you
a
might
friend.
enjoy your proposal, you know.
That's fair.
Okay.
Sometimes,
All right, so back
like
to our
everyone's guys,
article,
they got them
guys.
pictures. Ask the friends; they know everything.
So back to our article,
Yeah,
guys. Ooh, you
Go on
guys
there,
are making me hot.
sure.
Pinterest
That's a
for
good
tea.
point.
Get access to the Pinterest.
So
Oh, he knows.
He knows
there
about
is
He knows. Listen to
Point.
him.
Point.
so another one of
Point.
those reasons, guys, is bad wording of the proposal. So I want to hear from my ladies. I'll start with you, Natasha. Does it really matter what the guy says to you?
This is kind of tricky.
You
I
could be
want
my
to say
everything.
it kind of does matter what he says, right? If
Mm.
I can't follow along as to kind of what you're talking about, like
Mm-hmm.
if you're here and there, like, and you end the whole thing with "Will you marry me?" I want to say I'd be inclined to say yes because okay, this is
Oh
what
Lord.
you want. This is the summary. This is the concluding sentence. But if the whole thing is
Mm-hmm.
it just seems kind of haphazard. You didn't put any thought into it. Not that I don't want to make you have to sit there and write out this whole speech, but it was just like, okay, well, I guess I'll do it today. I guess this seems like a good moment, and you don't even know kind of what exactly you want to tell me. I can see why people would say no. I can see why there would be folks who would hesitate at saying yes. Um, but I don't know. I don't know that I would outright say no. It might make me just wonder in the back of my mind, like, was he super nervous? Or, was this last minute? Like, what was going on? But so long as I guess there's that will marry me in there at some point, and I understand this is what you're trying to ask me, this is the message you're trying to get across, I guess that would be fine.
Okay. And I want to let one of the gentlemen weigh in on that. I'll go with you,
Hey,
Marcus.
mbomblast.
Oh, okay, go ahead,
Casey, go ahead.
Casey.
Go ahead, bro.
So you can't start off with like, you are my sauce pois to my D blanc, the hello to my lip. You can't.
I think
It's funny you say that
can.
because I've been on Twitter. The funny thing is like you see different things, and they all communicate differently. So like say somebody from an urban community where they're say the verbiage that they use, I think I want you to be my ride or die from day one type vibe, and she's like, oh my gosh, babe, I love you. You know what I'm saying? And you differently where you want to speak more articulate, you want to use different verbiage and create a different type of ambiance. That might be the guy as well, like how the guy how you communicate, I'm going to be there's going to be something in the middle that doesn't know. You got to let that person be authentic. How I communicate to you, then what's the point of us even being together?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree
I
wholeheartedly.
totally
think
agree.
It depends
I
on
agree
the
with that.
person.
So I haven't heard
all of that
from
matters.
Tricia. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I feel like bad wording, honestly, and maybe the person is nervous, to be honest, because when you're nervous, sometimes you forget how to speak. Or I would not say yes right away. I would just ask, why do you really want to marry me? Like, sometimes the person will open up and then just elaborate even more. And if it's in a private setting, it becomes even more romantic because that's just an opportunity for you to remember, like to go over the whole relationship and know how far you've come or what they really like about you. So it's not really a reason to say no, to be honest.
Okay. So let's go down the line. Another reason for my gentleman. It says that poor choice of a ring or in certain cases, no ring at all. So let me tell you guys a story. True story. This is a very good friend of mine, by the way. He was testifying.
Wow.
He told us that when he proposed to his wife, he didn't have a ring. Right? He doesn't believe in rings. It goes against his faith and all of that, right? But culturally speaking, they're from different cultural backgrounds. So she was expecting a ring from him. But she still said yes. Right, ladies? She still said yes. But according to this article, people reject marriage proposals because of the ring choice or no ring. So I want my lady's opinion on that.
Materialistic world, okay? To me, honestly, does not matter. I went ahead and picked out my own engagement wedding ring. So it's different, but sometimes women are going to have specific needs and wants. And if it's not met, they will throw fit. Not me personally, but I know of stories where that has happened. So.
Okay. What about you, Mitsuka? What do you think?
You want to continue? I was saying that I think it's the job of the man to kind of like know what the expectations of the woman is. You said your friend in this particular situation, because of his faith, he didn't propose with the ring. I would think the woman would know that. And again, I think that they would have a conversation about that. Why is she finding out on the day of the proposal that he's not bringing a ring? Now, if she expects a ring, you need to give the woman her ring. Unless you told her that, you're not giving a ring, then her expectations wouldn't be that high. But for me personally, like my faith, I come from like a more traditional family that doesn't believe in engagement rings. But if I'm not getting a ring and my love language, my primary love language is words of affirmation, you better have like a beautifully worded letter or something that you're saying to me. If my love language is gifts, then you better have a wonderful gift to replace that ring. So you gotta know who you're proposing to. Someone who's being proposed to has to know the man that she's with. It shouldn't be something that's being brought to light in the moment.
Okay.
I want to say two things. Like, the first thing that I want to say is, like, notice how, like, they weren't clear. Like, on, like, the ring part, like, it's more like, yes, I want the ring, but, like, I don't want the ring. So at the end of the day, like, which one is it? And another thing that I will say, like, it's on the financial side of, like, buying a ring. Back in World War II, there were, like, that were like dying, like on the cusp like of like dying in like because of Hitler's Germany. And guess what, they still got married and they didn't have any ring, and that didn't stop them from going and like being together and like going through with their marriage. So I don't really believe that it makes any sense at all, like if like there is a ring or if there isn't one, or if like if you even like propose with a pop, like one of those ring pops. I feel like that's fair enough. Long as like you have love. No, long as you have love, that's all that should matter. Because you're not marrying me, for my ring or my ability to actually buy you a ring. You're marrying me for my ability to love you and to cherish you for who you are, not for a ring.
I agree. That is true to a certain degree. That is true to a certain degree. But love,
my ability to love you, my ability to be your husband should not rely upon a ring. This does not make any sense.
You gotta know the caliber.
Let's bring it in.
And this also brings me to the. Yeah, I'm very sorry, Ted. I'm very sorry. I'm a very passionate man. I'm sorry.
So I'll start with. I'll hear from Natasha. And then I'll hear from Mitsuka.
No, I think so there is something to be said about the size of the ring not being linked to the love that you have for a person, right? Your devotion to the person, right? They're not synonymous. Just because the ring is large doesn't mean the, you know, place that she has in your heart is large, right? But I think that it comes back down
Ooh, that's good.
to knowing the person you are with. Mitsuka has said this from the beginning, and I will continue to say this because it really does matter. If you are with someone who has told you point blank, you know, I will not be proposing with a ring because faith, because of my finances, because I just don't want to, listen to what your partner says. If she says, you know, none of those things mean anything to me, I still want a ring, then now you as a man have to decide, okay, I've told her I'm not going to do this. She insists that she wants it. Do I want to compromise or do I want to tell her, hey, this is maybe where we're going to meet, you know, you're not giving in. So guys, what does this mean? Does this mean we continue to date and never get married? Does this mean that we break up? It really comes down to knowing what the person wants, whether or not you are going to communicate that you can give them what they want and how you want to move forward, right? And then to the point of, you know, she not point blank question, not kind of, you know, open-ended questions, but yes or no questions. Do you want yes or no? Not, you know, what do you think of rings? You know, that's not very clear cut, right? But if you're asking very specific questions and you're taking extra step, right? She says she wants a ring. Maybe take her shopping, look at magazines, maybe look at her Pinterest, ask her friends, you know, do the work.
Okay. So let me hear from Mitsuka, please.
Asking the questions, because if you really want to know, I think you can find the answers.
I agree, Natasha. Again, I'm going to go back to the fact, like, you have to know who you're with. And you also have to know, you know, the fact that this is a big moment. You can't just make it seem like it's just another day in the year. I would compare it to going to a job. If you know that on the application it says that if you're coming to the interview, you need to come with a physical resume. If you don't come with a physical resume, it's not the employer's fault if they choose not to hire you because they told you what they wanted. And if you know that the woman wants that and you don't come through with it, then when she says no, you shouldn't be surprised. A lot of men, I feel, when a woman says something, they don't listen to her or they think she's not going to follow through with her word. Don't just take that lightly if a woman says, if you don't propose with a ring, it's an issue, and then you come and don't propose with a ring. You also have to understand, again, the caliber of woman that you're dating. If this is somebody that you're saying you're going to spend the rest of your life with, it's somebody that you love, it's a woman that means the world to you, then the effort has to match what you're doing. I feel like a lot of men, they put so much effort in so much of their lives. Like if they have a car, like the car, like the best trims, you know, take care of it. This is the woman that you say you love. This is the woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with. If she's worth that to you, and if you're placing her, you know, at that level in your life, you need to come through with your actions as well.
Like, and it's just
Very
like, you know, my
points, guys.
advice. And it's like, you know, my advice to any young men out there. If you go and then you propose to a woman and she says to you no because you don't have a ring, or if a ring is anything in question, you should leave her at the moment. That is not the woman for you. And as Future would put it, she belongs to the street. She is a She is not a woman you should. She is not a woman that you need to. She's not a woman that you need to invest any more than that, because that is a woman that will leave you the minute you cannot go ahead and give her something that makes her feel like she's worth it. You know, if I have to give you a ring, no, Ted, just 5 seconds. If I have to give you a ring in order for you to feel worth it, like you are worth it, I can tell you this: I don't need you in my life, because my love should be enough, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Wow.
I want to hear from Marcus.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Go ahead, Marcus.
Can I chime in on that? Okay. as in all things, right? There is no cut, clear, definite interpretation for an action. Okay, if a woman says no because of the ring, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is an utterly materialistic person that you have no reason to be with. That's not what
that would be
no,
hypocritical. That is hypocritical not to call it what it is. Don't sanitize the things. Do not sanitize actions. I don't believe in that. Just call it what it is. If we call it what it is, then like we can all gain something out of it. Denial is a dangerous thing. Denial can go ahead and make you do terrible things. So I'm not getting why is it so hard to believe that if you do not have a ring and a woman tells you she's not gonna marry you, how's that making any sense? Like she does not love you for your love, she loves you for that ring.
Carl,
It's all about the ring.
Let's hear from Marcus.
You have to think about that too. If your love really was enough, then your love would be enough to understand what she wants.
Personally, I believe in buying rings. I believe in showing a woman that you care and by giving her things. However, if I am ready to propose and the only thing that I don't have is a ring and you turn me down, you out. You're out the game.
The Bible says you make plans for a house.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Let's order in the courthouse, please. Order in the courthouse, please. Let me hear from.
Back to that quote.
Is this okay for me to chime in? Because I'm sorry, I wasn't done talking.
Yeah, Marcus. Yeah, Marcus. Continue, Marcus.
Oh, Lordy, I was cut short.
Please.
I was cut short. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So that does not necessarily translate into materialism. Let's be clear. If you're a man with the proper financial means to afford
financial has nothing to do with it.
Man, you're gonna let me talk.
Nothing to do with it. I'm very sorry.
Have to let me talk, man.
From Marcus.
I gotta make my point. All right. So now, again, this goes back to this simple issue of communication, okay? And understanding what the expectations of your partner are. If you actually know what your woman wants and you have the means to afford it, and for whatever reason, you buy her something that somehow diminishes the, I guess, auspiciousness of the occasion, and she feels as though you're deliberately not getting her a ring that translates into how big this moment is for that time, then yeah, that's your fault. I don't necessarily believe she should turn you down and say no because of that reason. And that's where the problem lies. It's not to say, it's okay, let me finish, man, come on. All right, so it's not to say, it's not to say that there isn't a hint of materialism in that. Again, if the ring is the problem, that can be expressed. But I don't think that necessarily should mean the doom of the actual engagement process. Some men cannot afford it. They buy a cheaper ring, right? And later on, and down the line when they actually have the means, they buy a bigger ring. They buy a new ring. But if you are dissatisfied with your ring, it is still within the confines of great communication in a relationship for the woman to express that, even if not right at the moment. Now, I went back to the article, and 53% of women have turned down a have turned down a proposal because of the ring. And that's where I believe that is materialistic, because I don't think it should necessarily, be up to the size or the quality of the ring to do that. But but saying that it's inherently materialistic for a woman to be dissatisfied with the size or the quality of the ring is not exactly correct.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus.
So
guys, here's a scenario.
I have one thing to say.
Guys.
Question.
Here's a scenario.
You got a lot to say, bro.
No. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says you have to buy a ring for a woman. That's all.
That's not what we said.
All right, so here's a scenario, guys. Some people say that women, once they're ready for marriage, they will be dropping hints here and there. Telling you that they're ready for marriage. Let's say, for instance, you take them to a friend's wedding you know, and then they look at the bride walking down the aisle. They'll be like, You know, they see someone proposes to one of your friends. They look at you and say, You know, or somebody can come up to them and say, hey, so and so, where's your significant other? Or, you know, for us Haitians, two people are dating, you say, hey, kot mau. You know, even though they're not married yet, you know, the woman can say, I don't see a ring yet. You know, so all of those are hints that they're dropping here and there, right?
Yeah.
But so let's say we take all those background information and we go back to this article that says that sometimes at the moment of the proposal, the woman says no because she can't see herself with that person for life or for the rest of her life. I want to hear from Casey. What would you say in a situation like this, bro?
She doesn't want to be with me. She doesn't see herself being with me for the rest of her life. Pretty clear answer. I'm going because if we're let's be realistic and look at the perspective of a relationship. You know, I'm depending on you. If you don't want to be around me, I mean, what do I got to depend on you for? What are you depending on me for? You really don't do this out there for you. So you're likely doing me a favor and doing yourself a favor by letting me go. And of course, there wouldn't be any hardship about it because it's going to be in between. But if you don't want to be with me, why would I be? I'd be crazy to put in a position to be with her, hurting myself. And where's the self love for me if I'm with somebody who doesn't even?
I like this. Trissa, you had a question.
Yes, I did. So I wanted to ask the ladies, after hearing everyone's point of view and your point of view, if you were presented with a proposal right now, would you turn it down because they did not meet your expectation with the ring or a lack of?
No.
No, I would not turn it down.
Okay.
No. I felt like we're letting that one slide easy, but for the sake of not arguing, we're not going to stay on that. But I believe that was a very dishonest. That was a very dishonest way of answering it.
Yeah, I mean,
so to my ladies again,
those are our answers.
The rest of my life with you.
I'm very sorry.
Okay, so
opinion, so it's tough to.
I'm pretty sure they'll be trying to make it up if the proposal doesn't meet my expectations. I'll say yes, but on the back end, you should make it up to me. But I'm not gonna say no because of that.
I'm just saying,
because I don't think it's fair to just say that, and the reason why is everybody comes from a different perspective. So how you feel about the situation, that's amazing. You're a girl who fits the beliefs that you have. But just to say like somebody doesn't put a ring on them, like say that's wrong. I mean, if I smoky, like I'm gonna just get back to my hustle and get her another ring later down the road. But I don't think she'll say no. I think that's a little bit like too material. How the girl is, because a lot of when it depends. Now we ain't gonna get to that. We ain't gonna get too much of that. But that.
So to my ladies, this will be our last question, guys, before we take our break. And I must remind you that once we come back from this break, then we'll start taking questions from the audience, I should say. So you guys will be able to call in. You guys will be able to write your questions in the comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. So, last question for the ladies. A lot of women turn down marriage proposals because the men proposed to them at someone else's wedding. What do you ladies think of that? I'll start with you, Natasha. Then we'll go with Tricia and then to Mitsuka.
Definitely understand that, and I don't agree that proposing at someone else's wedding is ever appropriate. Anyone's wedding is ever appropriate. So proposing, trying to get married at the same time, announcing that you're pregnant, like anything big, just let those folks have their day, have their moment. And I think as a woman, whether your proposal is in private or is in public, you want it to be special for you. You want it to be
Mm-hmm.
memorable, something that you can look back on and have fond memories of. So if your proposal is for attached to so and so's wedding, I think that that's gonna make you feel some type of that. My fiance, yes, he proposed. Yes, I love him. Yes, I want to spend the rest of my life with him. But I got proposed to so and so's wedding, so we share that same date. And it does sound a bit
Yeah.
trivial. I think that in the moment, if she really does, you should probably say yes. But I think that considering that event is event there get them, it's in poor taste to use that occasion to propose to significant other.
I like that term, poor taste.
Yeah.
So we'll go with you, Tricia. What do you think?
I don't think it's appropriate to propose to someone at someone else's wedding. It's stealing their shine, and not only that, there's another aspect of the situation where emotions are on all-time high when you're at a wedding. People cry, they're releasing hormones. So how I'm not 100% sure that's exactly what you really want at the moment, because once the emotion settles back down, what was your plan all along? That part I would want to know.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Mitsuka?
So for me, just to preface what I'm going to say, I think that what matters the most is just the final statement that the man makes. Will you marry me? If the man asks that question and for you as a woman, you're answering it and your answer is a yes, say yes in the moment. I don't think it's a reason to turn down a proposal in the moment. I do agree with the other ladies saying that it's in poor taste. I think for me personally, I don't think a man should propose on my birthday, on like another holiday, on his birthday. Like our proposal needs to have like its own day. And if it's my birthday, you're taking my shine from my birthday. If it's your birthday, I'm taking yours. Like it needs to be a separate day. So I don't believe that a man should be capitalizing off of another event or off of somebody else's event that they worked so hard to create and plan over months or years. And I think it's in poor taste. However, I don't think that that's a reason to say no, because I think at the end of the day, the final words the man says and the question he pops saying, will you marry me? If your answer is yes, again, on the back end, the man may have to because of what he did, because it was in poor taste, but I don't think that's a reason to say no.
Okay, thank you. And just before we go, I have a question for my gentleman. Well, not necessarily a question, but for you guys, what advice would you give our ladies? Not necessarily the ladies on the panel tonight, but our ladies in general. What advice would you give them on how to communicate with us guys as far as letting us know exactly what they want and how they want it when it comes to the proposal? I'll start with Marcus, then we'll go to KC and then Carl.
All right. I believe I have to preface what I'm going to say here by addressing the question you previously asked the ladies. I just want to put this out there as a disclaimer. If anybody proposes at my wedding, I am 100% dying at your funeral. I'm not even kidding. One way or another, I'm making it happen. Because you stole my shine, I'm going to steal it back. Do not, I repeat, abort. If you have a plan to propose at my wedding, I promise if you make my woman cry, I'm going to die at your funeral. Okay, you've been properly warned. Um, but I want to say about the fact that about the advice that you're asking for me to relate to women in general. Um, there isn't anything that I can say about this that isn't already cliche. Really, the important aspect of communication is that it's genuine, it's sincere, right? It's not done out of passive aggressiveness. You're not saying something that you don't mean just to avoid hurting somebody's feelings and then later on having to suffer from it, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch. I mean, I personally come into issues of communication in my own relationships in life with people that are in my family, you know, in my romantic life. I come into issues of communication. And usually the idea is that someone is suffering in silence. For one reason or another, they decided to withhold a piece of information about themselves or about the relationship that they deem is going to cause too much trouble for the moment. And it ends up kind of accumulating and becoming more of a problem later, right? There are some things that are seemingly harmless that are happening that some people do sometimes out of pure ignorance, right? Or a lack of attention for the other person's need. And then later down the line, those things happen so often, they become a pattern of behavior, and one person is hurt, and they can't talk about it because they're either afraid of your reaction or they're afraid they're going to be perceived as someone who's too, I don't know, naggy, or someone who always tries to pick a fight or something of that nature. So two things. Ladies, understand that it's important to provide emotional space in your relationship for the man that you're with, right? Yes, it is important for you to express your emotions, but just like you have them, your guy has it too. And we are part of a society that has long fostered an environment that prevents men from being able to express themselves healthily or express their emotions healthily. So be sure that in your relationship, the emotional space that is there, the platform that is there for people to express themselves and saying how they feel doesn't only belong to you. And learn to listen to the person that you're with. And if they're not really good at expressing themselves, then be sure that you are paying attention to the cues and things that will give you an indication as to how they're feeling about either something that you did or didn't do, or something that they want to tell you. If their pattern of behavior has changed, be attentive to that. And that allows you to communicate better, saying how you feel, but also be in a position where you can actually listen to how they feel and attend to their needs in a way that is more efficient and effective.
All right. Thank you, Marcus. I'll go to you, Casey.
So, Ted, could you say that more time?
So what advice would you give to the ladies as far as giving hints or basically communicating their needs or expectations when it comes to a proposal?
Okay. One of the things, of course, is like social media. You know, you can easily, hey, like he might be playing the game or something like that. Like, yo, hey, babe, this video, like, check this out. Like, I thought, you know, like even small hints like that gives guys at least an idea of what you're thinking in your head. Because sometimes using words can be challenging. Hints with pictures, throw them hints with, you know, with hey, look, hey, babe, this is what I've seen. Somebody else got this cut. You know, you could even pop into a, you know, act like you about to go get him a watch or something like that, and then like, yo, oh, look at these rings over here. These are pretty nice. You know, to kind of throw him some clue. You know, as smart as guys are, we really are like not that smart sometimes. So it would be helpful to meet anything like that. And talking too, or like, or get your friends, like I said before, to kind of get in the mix, because it's like a relationship. It's really a team effort. Like it's not really just your partner, your friends, your families. All that together is what creates that relationship.
Awesome, awesome. Last but not least, I'll go to my brother Carl.
Well, I only have two things to say really to young ladies out there or older ones that that are like in waiting for an answer. The first one is to be clear about what your expectations are. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Trying to be as clear as possible, because as the gentleman mentioned earlier, we sometimes we sometimes lack on the smart aspect, in some instances. And my mom always used to tell me growing up, you don't ask for what you deserve, So the part of like dropping hints, when you want a man to marry you, I believe that it's of poor taste. It doesn't accomplish anything, because if you do deserve to be his wife, he's going to make you his wife, and finances doesn't have anything to do with it. Even if he has a bicycle and an overdraft bank account, he's still gonna go ahead and propose to you. So those are what I think. A man that loves a woman will do anything and everything to make that woman his, no matter what it takes, or his immediate situation. And that's my take on it, and that's what I would probably tell any woman out there.
All right. Thank you very much, Carl. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was the first part of the show. I want to remind you guys that, as you can see on the screen, you can call in, but after the break. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, maybe about 2 minutes, and then we will be right back. So don't go anywhere. Share the live with your friends. I see you guys under the comments section. I see Sephora, Darlencia, Max. You guys are going off in the comments on Facebook. Well, I hope to hear from you guys pretty soon. You guys can call in. This is DroppedMic. We'll be right back.
An army of youth from all walks of life, dedicated and devoted to making a difference in the community. We strive to be the change that we want to see, putting our God-given talents to good use while relying on Him for guidance and strength. We do not reject tradition. We simply seek improvement. By turning both strengths and flaws into assets for the Lord. We are heavily armed with mass construction weapons, those of faith, hope, love, and prayer. And we are looking to impact every single individual we encounter. We are PDF Ministry, proactive and devoted faith ministry.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is hot where I am. I don't know if it's hot where you are, because today's debate, Lord Jesus. All right, so we're going to jump into our audience questions. Whew, you guys are killing me today. All right, so let's see which one we're going to address first. Okay, so someone on YouTube asked this question. If it's a not yet situation, right? Let's say you propose and the person wants to say not yet. So if it's a not yet situation, shouldn't that have been communicated beforehand? I'll let Mitsuka answer that.
I think so. I think it should be communicated. I think it's a bit unfair to say how soon prior to the proposal, because if somebody had a conversation with the woman a month prior to the moment that the man proposed, and she said yes, she wanted to marry them, then you can't really fault the man for going ahead and proposing a month afterwards. But I do think it was Natasha that mentioned it before, that you kind of have to know after you have that conversation, what are the different changes that occur in the relationship? Do you guys have like a huge argument that it wasn't petty, but it could have been something so substantial that it could really change somebody's mind about being in the relationship? Did you cheat? Were you unfaithful? Did you do something that was just so grave that, you know, kind of frustrated the woman to the point where she does not envision being with you anymore. It's up to the man to kind of follow those cues to realize the changes that occur in the relationship, to really know whether he should go ahead and make that step. Also, I think all men sort of have access to a woman's friends. And so a lot of the times, even if the woman doesn't tell you that she may not be feeling it, like, you can ask her friends. If she's not feeling the relationship, she may not tell you, but her best friend may know. And so go and talk to the friend. How's Mitsuko feeling about this relationship? Do you think if I propose, she'll say yes? These are questions that the man should be asking, and he should be taking the responsibility to make sure of that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we have another question. Someone said, does having preferences for their proposal make the person shallow? What do you think, Marcus?
No, not at all. Absolutely. Everybody has preferences when it comes to, I don't know, anything aesthetically inclined. And I think that there is a factor of aesthetics that goes into proposing to someone, right? Or celebrating any worthwhile milestone. And I think that if for someone's proposal, they have certain aspirations, certain preferences, which they've made clear and have communicated, it's not at all a problem. Again, preferences also include whether or not they want it to be public or private. You know, if someone is shy and they have anxiety, social anxiety, and they don't want to have, you know, peer pressure, and they want to have a clear head in being able to answer your question truthfully, especially when it's that important, I think having preferences says that you are someone who is decisive about what you want and how you want it done. As long as you make those things clear, I think it's perfectly fair for somebody to have preferences as to how they want their proposal to go down. Now, that said, those preferences do not rank the same way on the scale, right? It's again, the wording should have a certain value. The ring itself should have a certain value, the location and things of that nature. Those preferences are real, but we should be very careful when we decide which one of those preferences becomes a determining factor on whether or not one says yes.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus. I'll go to you, Carl. What do you think about that question?
So I believe the question was about how much location and also the ring aspect has to do with, like, you know, answering yes or no to a proposal. If I'm getting you right.
No. So the question is, the person having expectations for their proposal, does that make them shallow?
I do believe that you need to put some effort, like, you know, into a proposal. However, I wouldn't say that everything about how you like, you know, the way that the person wants you to propose per se is shallow. If, like, you know, it's not done, like, you know, in a specific way. But I do believe that some aspects that comes into the proposal, for instance, if you don't have a ring, you know, I, like, you know, that's something that can wade into, like, you know, the decision, like, you know, the answer that is given at that time. I do think, like, you know, things like that do make a person shallow, but things such as the setting and what to say, I do believe you need to put, like, you know, a certain of effort into it. But there are also other things that can be part of a proposal that if they're not there at a certain time, I do believe it makes someone shallow. If, like, you know, they don't, like, you know, per se, like, how can I say that? If they don't, like, if they don't accept a certain way of, like, you know, the way that you propose, that can make them shallow. I don't know if that answered the question.
Thank you. So I have a question for you, Casey. Well, not me. It's a question on YouTube. Person said, is it better to say yes to avoid public humiliation, or to pull off the bandage and say no on the spot? What do you think about that, Casey?
That's a great question. That's a great question. You know, obviously the best answer would be to say no. Not to be put in a position where, because if you say yes, the problem with that is that you're giving the person the expectation that, a wedding or a house place. Though it's humiliating, you just don't want to do that to yourself. You don't want to give anybody any extra leverage or any extra anything. Isolate the situation right there where I know would be the best answer to go through. Though it's going to be tough, and I don't know what's going to happen after that, but
Okay. So I have a question for Natasha. Someone on YouTube asked, would you end a relationship if your partner is sick? If you were thinking about ending it before their diagnosis?
Oh, wow. That's a tough question. That's a tough question. So, wow. So I want to say that if you wanted to end the relationship before you knew about their diagnosis, and then you find out, ooh, depending on what the diagnosis is, if it's life threatening or if it's something that there's going to be some treatment for, I think it's important to be honest, but finding the right time and the right way is probably the best thing to do. If they tell you on Tuesday about their diagnosis, it might not be best to tell them on Wednesday that, hey, day after I want to break up, right? But I think that person will be going through a lot in their life, and they will need that support. But at the same time, if they're looking to you for romantic support and you can no longer give that to them because you're no longer invested in that way, it's important to find some type of way to let them know, because sooner or later they're going to have that expectation that their girlfriend or their fiance or their wife is going to be there for them, when in fact you just want to be there for them as a friend, right? So I think, again, communication matters. Those type of situations are tricky because the when you say it and the how you say it are so important because of the diagnosis. But I think ultimately honesty is the most important thing in that situation.
Okay. I want to hear from the rest of the panel. What do you guys think about this question, though? Because this is such a sensitive issue, right? Because when is it ever the right time to break up with somebody after a diagnosis? So what do you guys think about that? I want to hear from everybody.
I don't think there will ever be a right time when someone is going through such a moment. I think is finding a way to be as honest as possible while trying to not hurt them more they're already hurting, and set the understanding that no matter what, you will be there for them as a friend. But there comes a risk with being honest, is that the person will notice that it will view your olive branch as pity, and they will refuse it. They won't want to stay with you because they feel like you're just there, even though you want to be with them as a friend. It's just like you pity them. So like making them feel comfortable that you have their back no matter what is the most important message, while you set the understanding that this is what it is, we are no longer together. But being honest with someone is the best policy, because when you are a caregiver, it takes a toll on you emotionally, physically, and spiritually sometimes. So not being able to undertake all that, and then like having to know that you're still committed to that person when you do not want to be, is a big issue. So I would just be honest.
Okay. So who wants to weigh in next?
Let me chime in on that real quick. Actually, my sister and I, we've had this conversation before, and we've talked about certain situations where a lot of the decisions that people make to take care of someone who's no longer at the state where they were when, you know, the two people first met is driven solely sometimes by guilt. Let's have the example of a parent who knows that a child is going to be born with a certain defect that prevents them from ever developing into, you know, what we consider a normal human being. And sometimes they still make the decision to keep the child based solely on the fact that they feel like they're betraying their offspring if they don't allow them a chance at life. But then if the quality of life is something that is, you know, barely in existence, are you really doing it for the child, or are you doing it for yourself? So the same thing is true, or I think it's still applicable to the ancestral relationship. If the person that you are with has had a diagnosis that inevitably ends in death, or at least them devolving into a state where the person that you met is no longer recognizable, if you decide to stay with them, you need to seriously question your motives. Are you doing it so you can quell the guilt in your mind and tell yourself that, well, you know, I did what I had to do for them because I said I loved them, and now I'll never feel bad about leaving them when they needed me most? And then you end up being someone like Tricia was saying earlier, who develops a certain amount of resentment for the damage that will ensue. Because whether you like it or not, deciding to remain in a relationship with someone who's inevitably going to become a burden to your life is a problem. It's a problem to you. It takes a mental toll on you, and you have to accept that. And if you decide to make that sacrifice, because sacrifices are a thing, then you need to question the motives. Do you feel like this person, you know, really deserves your support for the rest of their lives, and you'll do that for them no matter what? If that means sacrificing everything that comes into play when you make that decision, then that's on you. God bless you, bless your heart. I personally say that maybe let's talk about the event of being with someone who's slowly losing their mind to a disease, right? Someone who's got early dementia, right? At our core, our being is affected when we have dementia, right? It's affected. We're slowly devolving into someone that will never be the person we first were. It's not the body, it's the mind that is gone. Someone who's forgetting who you are, someone who's forgetting they ever met you, someone who's forgetting they ever had a relationship with you. Alzheimer's is something of that nature. Do you really want to put yourself in a position to be responsible for this being who is slowly forgetting who you are and who they are themselves, for the sake of quelling your own guilt about leaving them? So yeah, I say it's never going to be right. It's an impossible situation. But if you want to be honest with yourself and leave the person, do it in the most humanely possible way. But if you have to walk away, be honest enough with yourself to do that.
Wow. Very good point, Marcus. I'll take one more person and then we'll go to the next question. Don't forget, guys, you can always call in. The number's on the screen. Call in if you have any questions or if you want to share an opinion. I'll go with our panelists. So anyone else want to chime in on that?
Well, I want to say that it has to do with, let's say you're with someone for a certain period of time, let's say 5 years plus, you know, the relationship is very serious, and then there has been a diagnosis. I think the question has a lot to do with, addresses a lot about someone's humanity and also their loyalty. Personally, I believe if that is a serious relationship and that is something that was gearing towards marriage, I believe that it isn't something like, you know, you should go ahead and just you shouldn't just, like, you know, break up with someone just because of a diagnosis. That probably just says that you weren't loyal to them to begin with. But I do understand that there is a toll that, like, you know, that those kind of situations that, you know, can put on someone, you know, caring for someone that is sick and that is going through something like that can put a heavy burden on people. But personally, I believe that if I'm with someone, I'm with you forever, baby, until the end.
Hey,
no matter what.
I like this.
Dad.
So we'll go to the next question. Oh, go ahead.
I've seen a question on YouTube. I wanted it to be addressed. So it's from Naomi Reveal, I think. Could it be that non-romantic setting is just how the survey participant rationalized their negative answer, but not the real reason? So,
That's a loaded question.
It is a very loaded question. I mean, can we really tell? You know what I mean? We really wouldn't know what their true reasons would be or were at that
Goes back to
moment, but-
communication. Say what you mean. Say what
That's
you
true.
mean.
Exactly.
That's very true.
Like
That's
cause
true.
it. Say exactly
Very
what you
true.
mean. All right, so we'll go to the next question, guys. So this is on YouTube, from YouTube. Speaking as a woman being proposed to, the person said, "What if my family doesn't accept you as my husband, and I'm very family oriented? Is that a reason for me to reject?" What do you ladies think?
I think that's a great question, and I wanted to chime in on that because I have a friend of mine who went through something like that, and it took on her um, in a really horrific way. Like she was really stressed. But one of the things that I remember she said after coming out on the other side, so she chose to accept the proposal and she chose to move forward with her fiance and get married, despite knowing how her family felt about him. But she said that she should not have allowed their feelings to interfere with the relationship at that point after they had gotten so serious, because she had by then made it meant to him. So she said that if she knew early on, which she did, how her family felt about him, she had a choice at that moment to say, I'm going to continue and either hope that they change their minds, but accept the fact that even if they don't, this is what I want to do, or I'm just going to break up, right? So I think, again, that's where the communication comes up. And I think it also, matters if you're being honest with yourself. Are you going to say that I am at a point where I am ready to cleave to this person and forsake my family, not in a negative way, but to say, you know what, it doesn't matter what they think. This is the person that I've chosen to spend the rest of my life with, and so be it, right? Or are you the type of person who says, my family is more important than this man or this woman, so I'm going to choose them? If you have made either choice, you need to be extremely confident and comfortable in that, and be willing to move forward in the direction that you've chosen, because ultimately it's not fair to the person that you've chosen to be with to kind of string them along, wondering, well, I don't know if I'll say yes because my parents don't like them. So let's just keep this relationship going in the hopes that my, family changes their mind. The same way that you would not want to be in a situation where their family doesn't like you and that person is unsure about what they want to do with you, you shouldn't, put the other person in that position as well. So very early on, if you know that your parents or your family's opinion is more important than your personal opinion, ask your family on like 2 or date 3, what do you think about this person? And if they say it's a no-go, then let them go, because their opinion is more important to you. But if you know that you and that person are in a ride or die relationship and it's the two of you against the world, then be ready for whatever comes with that, but let that person know that you're in it with them.
Okay. What about you, Mitsuka? What do you think?
I'm just gonna say flat out no. I don't think it's a reason to just reject the proposal. I feel like before, again, we're going back to the conversations that should have been held prior. Before being proposed to that this is somebody that your parents don't want. And I would think that the man should be made aware of this, or he knows that your family isn't too fond of him. And so if he ignores that and decides to go and propose anyway, again, I don't think that's a one. And the woman with her, making the decision, I feel like this is where we can like speak about relationship ends after this. At that point, if she rejects it, the relationship should end. Because for me personally, and I think the way relationships should be is, you know, there's a goal in mind. Like we both know what the end game is. And if the end game is marriage and that's what they've spoken about, and you're remaining in this relationship with somebody knowing that you may not marry them because of something that your parents believe, then you should either choose to end the relationship, but don't go and reject at the point of proposal. Because at that point, once you reject it, you kind of have to settle for the decision that you've made, which is basically choosing your family over this person. Your family's wishes, I should say.
Okay. So someone asked a question on YouTube, and I'll have this one for the guys. It says, isn't a proposal always unexpected? Why even mention proposal preferences? Casey, what do you think?
Unexpected. I don't think it should ever be unexpected. I don't think you should just pop the question. Oh, this is not like a Hollywood. So I believe you should definitely communicate, have conversations, talk about where you want a relationship to go. You know, some of them the small things. Is she even a good kisser? You know, does she make the hair on the back of your skin? You know, like all those. So if you're, because this is forever, you know, and especially with the divorce rate that we have in the United States, it'd be best to make at the forefront, talk about it, you know, dialogue about it. And then when you feel that you're comfortable financially, emotionally, all the way, everything situated, shoot your shot. But right out the blue, nah, that's a bad joint. That's a bad call.
Okay. What do you think about that call?
Unless war.
Well, I don't think like, you know, that is a decision that should be taken like, you know, very lightly. However, I personally am a free-spirited guy. You know, I believe that a conversation should be had, you know, about like, you know, getting married, and if like, as I mentioned before, if it is something that both people fit and then they do understand that, you know, that is something that they want, I don't believe like, you know, it has to be necessarily planned. It just has to be talked about. You know, you could be, you know, anywhere, or like, you know, anytime you feel that it is right for you, and if it was talked about in the past, I believe that you can go ahead and shoot your shot. And I don't necessarily believe that finances have a lot to do with it. I don't believe that anything parents like, you know, yeah, that weights a lot. But like, you know, I don't believe like, you know, there's much into it besides like, you know, being on the same page.
Okay. I want to hear from you, Marcus, before we move to the next question.
Teddy, we're talking about the family issue?
No, about the proposal.
About the preferences? Well, I mean, the preferences,
yeah,
again, to me, they're justified, okay? It is justified to have preferences. And no, the idea that a proposal should be unexpected is not exactly correct, at least not in my opinion. Because my thing is, there are logical steps to being in a relationship that is rather informal, that then leads to exclusivity, and then there is a normal course of action that happens from when there is nothing to when there is a marriage proposal. And if all of that matters, then yes, during the course of this relationship, those preferences should be expressed as clearly as they can possibly be. And in the interest of wisdom, it would be important for the person expecting the proposal, the woman, to be rather lenient as to how precisely those expectations are met, right? Yes, you dropped a hint. Yes, you told him you wanted a cushion cut. Yes, you told him this, you told him that. But there are limitations to what is actually possible in the scope of that engagement or that proposal. And I keep hearing Carl say that it doesn't have anything to do with finances. I have to wholeheartedly disagree, okay? Finance is a major, very important part of any long-term relationship, because when two people get together, finances become intertwined. It is not to say that those finances are going to stay the same, that they're going to stay where they are, but all women who are dating proactive, you know, potent men know. And those are women who know that though their men may be in a precarious financial situation or one that is not too, how would you say that, too abundant, they know that eventually this man has the tools and the willingness to build, their finances into a place that is more prosperous. That being said, that belief should not only be based on potential, it should be based on previous evidence. This man had 2, he turned it into 4. He had 4, he turned it into 8. And now, based on that pattern, I can say that I believe that this man can turn this 8 into 16. But yes, it is definitely no person should, in the name of love, condemn themselves to a life of financial precariousness just because. All right, it is unwise to decide to marry someone when you don't believe in their ability to uphold good financial health in the course of your relationship. That's what I believe.
All right, Marcus, thank you. And we have a next question. So someone oh, you said something, Carl?
Go ahead, Teddy. This is not gonna end.
I just want to say something. And it's related to finances. Yes, potential, has a lot to do with it, and turning 2 into 4 has a lot to do with it. But I do believe what you're suggesting is that women have to actually be with guys that are only at a financial stage, in order for them to be able to get married. As I mentioned before, if there is potential and if there is some effort, I don't believe that your state of finances have anything to do with love. Love and finances have 2 different ways of operating. One has to do with money, one has to do with how you feel. I'm sorry?
No, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, Trisha.
No, I just didn't catch what she said.
So
did you ask a question, Trisha?
So
yeah, I can hear you, Trisha.
Love is different from finances. So, but when it comes to marriage, it is a component of marriage, because you marry someone's debt. You marry their financial ability to sustain themselves. It's not only on the guy's end, it's also on the woman's end. So if
yes, I agree. That one I can agree. I can rally behind that. I can. But when they put the pressure on you on the guy, I feel like that doesn't justify things, So
it should not be the guy, it should be both. So that's why it goes back to the question being asked. Can a woman say no? Should the relationship be over after that? Because if a woman doesn't feel like she's financially responsible, financially stable enough, she should have the right to say no, not right now.
Well, let's just agree to disagree. I mean, love. I'm just not. I don't know if I can just grasp the concept. But to me, love just one side and love the other. Now we can build together. We can fix things. But marrying someone doesn't necessarily have anything to do with money. And society I feel has a lot to do with that. And I don't personally agree with this theory.
You need some type of
financial 3 reasons: finances, sex, and children. So those are the top 3 reasons. If it's finances was not the most important, not to say the others aren't, but why not is it not the most important? You spend that's majority of work, or you spend whatever amount of time that you're doing perfecting a specific craft. We should be able to develop some type with your answers. Now, when Marcus said turn 2 into 4 and then 4 into 8 to 16, 5 and 15 years. Now, the woman has absolute right in between any of those time frames to say, you know what, this is going way too slow for the, I'm out. She has right to. Like you were saying as well, Carl, if she trusts in your ability to produce, amazing. And of course, as to provide that security, and that security can mean financial security, can mean, you know, you being a protective person, she feels safe, you create for her, bring her emotions to you. All that is part of providing. The finance part is very important, because if you got no limia, you better get some candles in that bad boy, you know, or something. But finances are very, very important, and I recommend everybody that their significant others' finances.
To some extent, I will agree, but like, you know, like, you know, as a final cut, like, you know, I don't think that should be like, you know, a legitimate concern, you know, because people like in the past, people would marry each other like, you know, at like 17, 16 years old, you know, they weren't financially ready, you know, but they made it towards the end, you know, towards like, you know, the middle of like that marriage, or
we don't know that. We don't know that they made it.
Yeah, they have.
Even if I did make it, I think it's like problematic to compare those two to current stages, because people back then also decided to stay together because people back then didn't get divorced like they do now, right?
Yes,
so people
thank
back
you,
then
thank you.
understood that if they got married, no, but
thank
that
you. Then maybe the problem,
then
maybe the problem isn't finances.
I'm not agreeing with you.
No, maybe no. You are. You're just probably not admitting it fully.
It might be deeper. It might be deeper. I can concede that it might be deeper than just finances. But until we delve deeper into that, we can only deal with the problems on the surface, and one of them is finances, right? So if we can't
no one has
everything
told
underneath, let's address that first, right? And then we'll continue to do the work, right? But if we haven't gotten to the place where, as you know, married folk looking at each other and saying, I'm literally doing this for better or for worse, divorce is not an option, right? That's something they did in the past that a lot of people don't have the mindset of now, right? Which is why we look at money, which is why we look at children, which is why we look at sex, which is why we look at all of these.
Then maybe the whole concept of marriage is foul.
In the back. Not necessarily.
No, it's not foul.
Maybe they're looking at it in a different lens.
Maybe the whole concept, because
that's all it is.
It does.
I disagree.
Well, if we have to rely, if we have to go ahead and like, you know, rely on finances, like, you know, instead of love or being with someone for better or for worse, I think like, you know, they should probably like, you know, even like, you know, marriages in general into questioning, you know, or do they even work? Because like, you know, if you have to look at other like, you know, pointers to like, you know, determine if you're gonna go ahead and marry someone beside love, I mean, other than love, you know, I don't really know what marriages are. I'm confused.
Okay, I have a question. You are with a woman right now, right? And
I'm seeing someone.
No.
I thought you asked.
Hypothetically speaking.
Wow. My question is about, okay, hypothetically, so that woman, right, you love her, you're ready to marry her, but you're not looking into the finances. Let's just say that she's not financially responsible. Would that be a red flag for you, or an indication to tell you that you're not ready for?
Personally, I believe that, like, you know, I'm old school. I do believe that, like, you know, financially, like, you know, I'm supposed to provide. You know, I'm supposed to go ahead and do her finances is not anything that matters to me, because that is my job. Now,
somebody marry Carl. Somebody, anybody, marry this man.
now, one thing that I can tell you, is when it comes to her finances, like, you know, yeah, if that's someone like, you know, that is very trivial, and then that is like, you know, spending like, you know, carelessly, yeah, that is something that we need to address. But like, you know, I don't think like, you know, any man for any man that respects himself should be looking at any other woman's like, you know, finances. That is not the way I was raised, and that is not something like that I'd seem like to be like something. My finances, if they are in order,
we have
that's
a
all
caller
that
on the
matters.
line.
Next week on Drop Mic, are you a husband or a sugar daddy?
Both. In some instances,
we have
work.
a caller on the line.
You know?
Guys. We have a caller on the line.
Okay.
Let's take this call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Thank you for calling.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
I wanted to add to the conversation. I don't remember the panelist's name, but she mentioned that finance can be a superficial problem that runs deeper than that. And I wanted to add to that. I completely agree with her because let's say somebody has like $10,000 worth of debt from a credit card that they use for Gucci and buying unnecessary items. That's a trait that can affect many other parts of your relationship. For example, the person might not be able to take care of their kids the way they should be able to. Some couples have joint accounts. They might be spending all that money that was supposed to be toward your future and unnecessary items. So I definitely don't think love is enough. You do have to look at other things because I can love you as much as I want. But if important things like that, you don't know how to manage them, then it's going to be an issue in the relationship. Like I can love you and just starve at night, then it's not going to worth anything to us. It's going to be you destroying the relationship. It won't help the relationship go forward. So I definitely believe that there are certain traits that when dating somebody, you should definitely pay attention to. Because love is a choice. You might have feelings for somebody, and the next day, if you have to end the relationship, you can always find somebody else to love even more than you did love them. So I don't think love is enough in that case.
Very good point. Very good point. We have another caller on the line.
Let's hear it.
Let's put them through.
Yeah.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for calling.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to keep myself anonymous. Hopefully you don't recognize my voice.
I know you.
So there are a couple of things I want to address. I'm going to address the finance thing first. I think, and I don't know how many Christians we have on this live, but the Bible just says that be not unequally yoked with unbelievers. When you speak about being unequally yoked, that applies to everything. I think we like to focus so much on the religion aspect, and we forget that being equally yoked includes your values, how you're going to raise your children, how you're going to raise your home, as well as how you're going to manage your finances. And the reality is you do not want to get in a marriage with someone who does not view finances or management of finances the way you do, whether it's a male or a female. Because the worst thing you could do, especially if you have a good credit score, if you have, you work hard to pay off your debt, your loans, whatever the case may be, is to now end up in a relationship with someone. And for them, they feel like they can recklessly spend money, or they can do whatever they want. And for a lot of people, the spending money
what if I had no home, nowhere to stay?
Or in a reckless manner, sometimes it's a mental thing. Sometimes that's how people cope with issues. It's beyond just the surface. So that's not always something you can address just because you're in love with the person. If that person does not see eye to eye with you in terms of finances, remember that you also have kids. And, being West Indian myself, I would hate for me to marry someone and we go so broke that I now have to go back to depending on my parents because they didn't know how to act right. So, the finance, the reality of the situation is, when you fall in love with someone, you fall in love with their character and you fall in love with their values. And you want to also remember that you are bringing in a new generation, and you do not want your children seeing your partner, your spouse, spending recklessly, acting recklessly, and they're not able to pass those same values, pass financial values and financial peace, over to those children, because then it becomes a generational curse. It becomes a generational cycle of, just people constantly spending recklessly. And eventually when they see their parents in an unhealthy marriage like that, then they end up in a similar relationship and then they justify it. So I just wanted to put that out there, make sure that you're equally yoked across all bounds, because
I think we may have lost that anonymous caller whose name starts with a J.
I think I know who it is too.
I think I want to chime in. I want to chime in on that real quick. I agree. I mean, church lingo aside, really, I usually make a joke, talking to my relatives and people in my circle, saying that if I were president of any country, I'd require a license for people to raise children, because we require a license for them to drive a car. Anything that affects human lives in any significant way will require licenses for people to do them. And although that sounds a little totalitarian and kind of, extreme, but I think the point that I'm trying to drive forward is this. When you marry someone and you envision having children with them, you have to understand in its full magnitude the impact that you have on those human lives that come out of you, right? And so, yes, being able to provide for the entirety of a family is a great thing if you can afford it, but it should not absolve people in that family of the responsibility that they have to lead in certain aspects. When you marry a woman, it's not just another mouth for you to feed or another person for you to provide for. This is somebody who is your partner in molding a lifestyle that you pass down to your children. And whether or not you like it, you are not the only person who will influence those children and their patterns of behavior. So if the women in your household, the women that are growing, the young women, the girls that you have, are looking up to their mother as some sort of a model for their lifestyles, they then become women who spend recklessly and feel like they don't have a necessity of pulling their own weight, as far as finances are concerned in a relationship. And that is gonna foster, I guess, an unhealthy environment for a rude awakening later on in life, when they realize that most women out there are part of marriages where it's a two income household and they have to pull their weight and they have to understand how to spend money healthily.
That one I can agree. Unhealthy environment for a rude awakening later on in life, when they realize that most women.
Yeah. Okay. So I think somebody's left their volume on. Yeah. So with all that in consideration, I think it's important for us to value everything that the person that we are with is bringing into the relationship, as far as discipline is concerned, as far as moral values are concerned, as far as finances are concerned, as far as everything is concerned, because not only are we affecting the dynamic that we have between ourselves as married people, but we're also significantly affecting the dynamic within which our children are growing, and that's important.
Okay. And I think we have another caller on the line.
Let's go.
Through. Hello.
Come on, caller.
Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Hi. I have a
question.
If your significant other wants you to sign a prenup, would you say no to his proposal, even if you love him? I have that question for the panel.
Okay. All right, I'll start with you, Casey, and then we'll go around and have everybody answer that question.
Sunday, we actually have prenup, because a lot of us are all like, my circle of friends were all aspiring entrepreneurs. So in the imagination of you can become a target. You can become a financial target or a meal. I pose it, what do y'all think? If you and your significant other about to get married, would you be opposed to signing? That person has more money to be prenup. They all said yes. I was like, okay, now let's switch it. Say you want your lady or you want your husband to sign a prenup. How would everyone had? I'll share my view though. I wouldn't necessarily. This is what I would do. I would have, but I would never turn. I would never let her know that I actually turned in the prenup. I know that sounds a little tricky. I know that sounds. But the reason is this: we're in this fight together. I didn't marry you for your money. I didn't marry you for your resources. I married you for how you thought even across. So it's important to protect yourself and your assets because we do live in America, and we got to be honest. Marriage is can be manipulated at times, especially when it comes to financial resources. So you have to be very, very careful. If I know, would I have my lady sign a prenup? Like I said before, I'd have her sign it, and then I would never turn it in. At 25 years old, in the future, I have a completely different thought process. But that's how I feel now.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Like,
like
on my end, the only thing I can tell you is get a prenup and sign it and turn it in. Because let me tell you one thing. That's from personal experience. Whenever a woman is mad, they go for everything you have. They go where it hurts. And I can tell you, if you don't have your affairs in order, you will bleed. And I can tell you, you will bleed dry.
That ain't no blanket statement,
So,
is it?
I'm just saying, from personal experience, I'd say sign it. I would say sign it, and and Casey, I would tell you, that's my advice to you. I would tell you to turn it in, but that switch is on,
I want to hear Matuka, man. I want to hear Matuka. What you got to say?
Okay, so coming from the legal standpoint, coming from the legal standpoint, a lot of people don't understand what a prenup actually is. The purpose of a prenup is because every state has its own laws. Every state has its own laws that pertains to a family. And it's not that the woman is bitter, but every state has a way that they process a divorce when it occurs. And there are certain statutory things that a woman is entitled to, or that a specific spouse is entitled to when a divorce occurs. So signing a prenup isn't always because a woman is after your money. Signing a prenup could just be something as simple as you saying that the laws in your state aren't favorable to what you personally would desire if the marriage ends. And so you're writing out explicitly what is it that you would want. It's not that the woman's after your money. The state, there's a certain...
Maybe I'll hire you. Maybe I'll hire you as my lawyer. Maybe I'll hire you as my lawyer to make one in order for her to actually, not go after my money. Because that is something, that I've seen. And that is not something, that I'm going to go ahead and accept. If I make my money, I'm not going to have anyone taken away from me.
She may not even want your money. It's not always about going after your money.
Let me tell you, that's fine. That's fine, but I would still rather have a prenup. And as a matter of fact, we should exchange numbers. And I will hire you to actually drop that prenup for me. You have your first client. Your first client will be called.
Let's hear from.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Let's hear from Natasha. Go ahead, Natasha.
Come through, Natasha.
Go ahead, Natasha.
I think she's frozen.
I can't really hear Natasha. Okay. We'll go to you, Tricia, for now.
Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. I don't think there's that. Also, I think Natasha's back.
Necessarily wrong. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the prenup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the idea of the prenup and actually putting it into place, as long as the motives are honest.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh.
We can hear you, Natasha.
Who you think has ulterior motives as to why they want to be with you, then maybe you shouldn't be marrying them. And maybe it also takes us back to how we actually trust this person. Do they have their own money, right? Are they here because of what I have? Even if they don't have something, they have the potential to earn, right? So all things, I think, go into how we view the person. You know, after you really examine them, maybe you don't want to marry them. Maybe you want to marry them for another reason outside of love, so you want to put the prenup into place. Or maybe you'll see them for who they are and say, you know what, I trust and have faith that I can see who this person is, and that in the small things, when they get mad, they don't act up and try to, you know, I don't know, bust the windows out my car or things like that show me their true character, right? I can see them in totality. And so I trust that whatever happens 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, I'm not going to need a prenup. But I think it goes back to, like we were saying before, communication, really getting to know the person and seeing them for they are.
Well, the way I feel about that, that's just one thing that I have to say. The way I feel about a prenup is the same way I feel about a gun. I'd rather have one and never use it than needing one and not having one. So I'd rather have a prenup, you know, and never need it than not having one and have all my stuff taken away from me. Because like if we look at it, let's be fair. The justice system or legal system is very biased. And most likely, the woman is almost always right. And if a judge goes and tells you to give everything you have, trust me, if you don't have anything to protect you, you will lose everything you own. Therefore, a prenup is essential. That's just a fact.
I wanna hear from Tricia and then Marcus.
I answer the question. I had a question for him, because the whole conversation, it was like his opinion was more so about how love is important. It has nothing to do with finances. Like that just proves the point that like if you need a prenup, it is very important.
The prenup isn't that has anything to do with that. That doesn't no. What I did say was that like I never said at any point that like finances like weren't like like a factor. I'm just saying like it shouldn't be the top one. If you're gonna go ahead and marry someone, it shouldn't be because of it should be love them. Now if there's any potential into like if there's no potential like that person's a bum, well you probably shouldn't be with bums. But like if like you with someone with potential, I don't think like his or her like I mean his finance or like hers like has anything to do with love. But like a prenup.
Woman who thought her finances were important. What's the point of having a prenup? What's the point of trying to protect your assets from her?
Because I know, woman, I'm wise enough. I've been living on Earth for more than a quarter of a century. I can tell you that, like whenever women are mad, they go for blood, and the blood they go for usually it's in your pocket and your kids. It's a fact. You listen to like any if you listen to Prager University or you listen to like anyone that's like well versed in the topic, they'll tell you. And as a lawyer, you should know that the system is like against men. I have to put it clear, and you have to protect yourself.
Okay, let me just jump in.
Let's hear from Marcus. Let's hear from Marcus.
I would go so far as to say the system is rigged, but I think as someone who is studying to become a professional in the field, you do understand there are discrepancies happening in the field right? And that's why there are men's right activists out there that are defending the biasness that is apparent in the system against men. So let's not just say an absolute
Who's
truth.
the men activists? Who are they? Like, do you hear enough of them?
Oh man, it's called Google. But anyway, what is this?
They you know what they call men right activists? They are called terrorists. They are called women hitters. So it's not something that's in our favor. So I'm just putting it out there.
Let me get through my section. For your information, they do exist, and if you do put enough research into it,
I know. Will Ferrell. There are many.
All right, cool. So okay, so with that being said, I think it speaks to the character of a person if they're ready to pick up whatever the case may be in whichever state you are. But in this specific instance, it speaks to the character of a person that they would accept to take 50% of somebody's earnings that were probably acquired before that person met them, and take that
it all.
and not
trust me,
and not consider it ill-gotten gains. So my thing is, if you have somebody who thinks that the emotional hurt that, or whatever the case may be, that caused the relationship or the marriage to end, is worth bankrupting you or taking away something from you that had nothing to do with the marriage or something that you didn't acquire within the marriage, I believe that to be unfair. I wouldn't do it to someone, and I wouldn't expect someone to do it to me. But hold on.
It doesn't have to be fair. It just has to be legal. It has to be legal, not fair.
All right.
Okay, hold on. This is not a law review, man.
Long as it's legal, they'll take your money. Believe me. Long as it's legal, there's no such thing about being fair. When you're in that courtroom, when you are in that courtroom, it won't matter if it's fair. It won't matter if it's legal. And if the judge says it's legal,
I agree.
Fairness is gone.
Let me just drive my point home. Let me drive my point home. Okay.
True?
Let's bring it in.
Let me finish.
Go ahead, Marcus. You have 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Point is, know who you're with. Know that they're honest. Know that they won't have a disproportionate reaction to whatever you did to hurt them and try to hurt you back in the process, because I think that it's petty and it's kind of childish. That being said, whoever the woman is who hurt Carl, I hate you.
Back in college, back in college, there was a professor that told me one thing. You know what she said? She said, she mentioned a man, his name was Frank Dance, I believe. You can never know everything there is to know about someone. So I cannot know your heart, 100%. So I might know how you're feeling right now at the moment, but doesn't mean I know how you feel truly or how you'll feel in 20 years. So therefore, wouldn't it be wiser for me to have the prenup and then not even I have to worry about that? What seems to be the big deal? I mean, it shouldn't be
it's an ergonomic decision. Okay, it makes sense. It's a good protection to have against anything. I'm not against that. But what we're saying is we can't use that to create an overgeneralization of what women will do as a response to being hurt in a marriage.
I'm not generalizing. I'm based on fact.
All right,
I'm basing this on fact.
I'm done.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. I appreciated the enthusiasm tonight, the passion, but we have to end the show. Thank you guys again for volunteering your time to be here with us tonight. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. I want to thank you guys for all the questions. And I want to thank some people in particular for their feedback throughout the week. I know Juliette, she's been helping out a lot, our caller. Darlene Sejour, Fabrice Merveille, and everyone who's called or texted to give us some feedback about the show. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. And remember, you can always follow DroppedMic on Instagram at the DroppedMic Show. And if you have any questions or if you have any topic suggestions you would like us to discuss, you can always send us an email. And our email is thedroppedmicshow@gmail.com. Thank you again for tuning in, guys. Again, it was your host, Ted Wigist. And tune in on Wednesday for next week's topic. Have a good night. See y'all next time. Are they still on?